Hi, this is Vicky, also known as Dragonfly7673. You're watching DragonflySoars. It is Sunday, November 4th, about 2:15 or so, and which is why we have natural sunlight at this time of year. I had told you guys that I would record a kind of Switzerland-focused episode, so that would be this episode. Since the Rhinebeck episode went an hour long, I'm glad I didn't try to combine them. So, this one will be mostly about Switzerland, since it's Sunday. Tomorrow, Monday, would normally be the regular recording day. I'm not going to record again tomorrow. So, starting next Monday, which I believe is the 12th, we'll start doing regular recordings again. I didn't mention it during the Rhinebeck episode, but if you want to win the yarn from Han Farm, I will be drawing this on the next regular episode, the November 12th one. Part of that is I like to give 2 weeks for people to catch up on podcasts, because I know I don't have time to watch podcasts all the time, and so sometimes I get, I'm a little sad when I'm watching a podcast. I'm like, oh, that'd be really cool to win, and never mind, the drawing has already done. So I try and give 2 weeks. So the prize for the Blue Moon Fiber Arts has already been shipped out. That was shipped out yesterday. And the winner of the skein for Click for Babies also got mailed out yesterday. So, and that one wasn't even late because Katie and I didn't have the address of the recipient. So everything got mailed out within a reasonable amount of time, which makes me happy, because I was a little worried that one, the person would be kind of waiting because I was out of the country. So, let's get on to the Switzerland trip. So I've been trying to figure out exactly how to talk about this. I figured we'll just go chronologically. I do have pictures of some things. I have yarn to show. I've got a project to show. So we'll get started. So you guys know on Sunday I got home late. Monday I needed to leave the house by 2 p.m. in order to make it to O'Hare on time. So I slept in a little bit on Monday, but not very much. There was just stuff to get done. So I did my laundry and I repacked, and thank God for that travel checklist from Travelsmith. If I can, I saved the PDF a long time ago. I'll see if I can find out where I got it from, because now it's just something I have and I print off. But it was a lifesaver when I was trying to pack quickly, except for not having buttons for Rhinebeck. So I got everything done. I think I had to run a couple errands. I don't even remember. Monday's kind of a blur. I left about 2 o'clock and drove down to O'Hare. Now that actually put me to O'Hare early, but the worry was that if I didn't leave at that time, I was going to start getting into rush hour traffic, and that would be a bigger problem. So I rather get there early, get through security and everything, show my passport, all that fun stuff, well before I actually need to fly out. So I can just sit in the waiting area. I can knit. I had my iPod, or my iPhone. I was listening to podcasts. So I had my iPad too. I mean, I had plenty to do. There was a coffee cart nearby. I was good. After I was there a little bit, the other people that were traveling from work also showed up. 2 of the guys came together. I knew them, and then one of the women was actually coming from our Cleveland office, so she came Cleveland to Chicago, and then was flying out with us from Chicago. And then 3 other people were already in Switzerland, because of their own things. But so the 4 of us were traveling together, sort of, because we weren't actually sitting near each other. Now the way Swiss Air works, you have pretty small seats, but both times that I've flown out to Zurich, it's been pretty empty. so you could move around after everybody got situated, and you could, the seatbelt sign goes off. In this case, I was sitting on, it goes 2 seats, 4 seats, 2 seats, through most of the plane. In the very back, it's 2, 3, 2, but the, on the way there, the guy in front of me, his 2 seats, he was by himself. My 2 seats, I was by myself. Behind me, there were 2 guys, but one of them moved as soon as we could get going, so then there was one guy by himself. So we actually just staggered ourselves so that we could actually lean back without bothering the other people, which was kind of nice. So then you've got an extra seat next to you to put your stuff, in my case, put my knitting. So I slept a little on the plane, but I don't sleep very well that way. And part of it is because the armrests don't come up. So they come up like this much. So they're always in your way. My only issue on that flight was there was a screaming 3-year-old. I'm guessing he was 3. But he threw a lot of tantrums. He was mad at everything. He was mad because the pilot announced something and interrupted his movie, because the movies are in the back of the seat. He screamed because he didn't want to sit in the seat they put him in. He screamed because he didn't want to sit in the other seat they put him in. And he screamed because he didn't want his seatbelt on. And it would have been okay if he had eventually fallen asleep, but this kid never did. Which is the other reason I didn't sleep, because he was just loud. Now, there was 2 other kids in front of him. Perfectly fine. They were a little crabby at the end, but who isn't after a 9-hour flight? So, and they were their brother and sister, and they were mostly picking on each other. So, but this kid, it really made me, I walked off the plane and said, young children, it should be legal to tranquilize them or fill them full of Benadryl if they're going to be on a long flight. Now, I'm not saying you should go drug your kids, but being the passenger next to them, it was irritating. Oh, and he screamed at me because I wouldn't let him have my blanket and my pillow. That didn't win any points with me either. So anyway, we land. We were actually running late. We had to sit on the tarmac in Chicago for a while, so we landed late. So our whole day was kind of out of whack. We finally landed. We got train tickets. We got on the train. We got to Aro, which is where the facility is. And then we went to the hotel. The hotel is right next to the train station. I'll show you that in a little bit. We took fast showers and we walked to the office. Now I'm going to tell you something. This whole trip, I don't know what was up, but every time I got a little stressed or a little warm, I was sweating. And I mean dripping sweat, where I was taking paper towels and it was disgusting. And the thing is I was a little worried, and I was talking to best friend about going and getting blood test to see if, maybe my thyroid's out of whack or something. But it hasn't been happening here at home. So now I don't know what's up. I'm due to get the blood test next month anyway, so I just decided I'll do it when I'm due and not worry about rushing it. But anyway, so we walk to the office, and I'm disgusting. I'm I just had a shower. And then we go into this room, and when we get there, there's all these people in this room, and you could feel the heat coming out of the room from just the body heat. Luckily, we didn't have to be in there very long because we were so late that we only had to be there for 2 hours, and the workday was done. So we went back to the hotel briefly, and then we went out to dinner. We went to an Italian place. Now, dinners in Switzerland, and partially this is because we're going to nice restaurants, they are served in courses, and you have a drink, and then you have your appetizer course, and then you have time for super salad, and then you have time for your entree, and then you have time for another drink, and then you have time for dessert or coffee, and then there's time for another drink. Every dinner we had was 3 to 4 hours long. If you're like me and you're an introvert and you need to recharge by yourself, that's not good. It was okay the first night because, frankly, we hadn't been all together that long. But it got old, even though the food was wonderful. So, the next few days, Tuesday was the really short day. Wednesday, Thursday were full days, and then we had 3 to 4 hour dinners. I did have an awesome tiramisu, and I'm going to put a picture here because, yes, I took a picture of my food. So, it was just one of those, it looked so pretty that even the people around me were like, oh, you need a picture. So, I snapped a picture. The food was good, and the nice thing about those first few nights is that we were going to nice restaurants where you could ask for the English menu, and we also had people around us who spoke Swiss German and could translate for us. So that was good. I'm not a big drinker, and there was, there was a few times where it was like, oh, have another beer, and I'm like, no, I am going to have coffee. So, coffee in Switzerland, for the most part, is small, but strong. You can put sugar on it, and then you could wait for a little bit, and then slowly the sugar will sink in. It'll keep you up. But I like big coffee with a little less momentum. So, anyway, on the way to work, when it was in the mornings, it was dark when we were going to work, and actually in the evenings sometimes too. It's just that time of year. So there is this big artwork in one part that's right in the center of a roundabout. So I took a picture of that. And then one night when we were coming home from dinner, we walked a weird way back. It wasn't the same way we walked. There was one restaurant that we went to that was really far. It wasn't really, really far, but it was far enough, and it was down a big hill, which means on the way back we had to walk up the big hill. I had been wearing mostly heels because I had heeled boots or tennis shoes, and tennis shoes were not dressy enough. So after walking a lot, my right knee was bothering me, and going up the hill, I wasn't feeling very good. But anyway, we went up the hill, made it, okay, and then we went kind of a weird way through the buildings, and we found this interesting artwork. And so that night I took a picture. Well, we were all trying to take pictures, but just to give you a size, I'm showing you one of the pictures I took in the dark, because there's a person standing inside. Now, I went back later and also took pictures in the daylight, so I will put them here too, but they're actually from Friday. So, I don't know exactly what the story is about that. It's called The Grotto. And it's just kind of this weird mishmash of animals and mythology and people, and it was just weird. But it was, enough that I went back to get better pictures. So on the third night was the night I sat there, and I was actually limping on that night, and I switched to tennis shoes at dinner and said, I don't care anymore. I'm putting on my tennis shoes. And they were trying to pick between a couple different restaurants, and I said that if it didn't involve the hill, I would go. If it did involve the hill, they could go without me. frankly, I was sort of hoping they would pick it with the hill and I would just skip it by that point. I like working with these people, but we were together. We had separate rooms, but then we had breakfast together. We walked to the office together. We were at the office together. We walked back together. We all had 3 to 4 hour dinner together. So it was like 15, 16-hour days, and you're with the same people moving around like lemmings or like little kids on a soccer field. Anyway, but they picked the Italian restaurant again because that one was an easy walk. So, which I totally appreciate that they were thinking of me, and I really do. But like I said, I was kind of done at that point, and there was a part of me that was so glad that they were all leaving on Friday, and I wasn't. So on Friday, everybody else was gone. I didn't even meet them for breakfast. I grabbed my breakfast in the train station because I had to walk through the train station. Now, the train stations I think of here in the U.S. are like for the metro train, and most of them are pretty small. But if you've ever been to Chicago and like Ogilvy Station, or I'm sure Central Station, New York must be similar. There's like stores around. There's stores. There's places to get coffee. There's places to buy a book, things like that. I mean, they're not like huge. They're not malls, but there's plenty of stuff around. So I walked through the train station to get to work, so I grabbed food and coffee at this one little shop. A lot of my coffee, luckily, is coffee, so that's easy. And then you have croissants, which I don't know. There's some weird word. I just kind of pointed. I said I want that. And blueberry muffins are something like muffin de blaberry. The guy was trying to help me pronounce it, and I could sort of do it when he was saying it, but now it's been a week and I don't remember. Again, pointing, smiling, saying danke helps a lot. The people are actually really, really friendly in Switzerland and try to help you. And if you ask them English, they will let you know they have a little, or they will get somebody else. Or you just work through it. So on Friday, I went to the office. I worked for half a day, and then I went back to the hotel. So I went to the hotel, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to go and wander around the city. I knew I wanted to go to the yarn shop. I knew I wanted to find Starbucks. So I decided to go and walk and do that. So I can show you some of that stuff now. So the first place I went was the yarn shop because I knew exactly where that was because we had been there before. The same woman helped me, but I didn't get any idea that she recognized me, but that's fine. I was there months ago. It's not like I'm a regular. And I got a few different things. All right. This is all of the yarn I got. Almost all the yarn I got this trip is all this Shulana brand. It is put out by Skazel Knitting, but I don't normally see it. And one of the kinds I don't even see a place online. I had to actually enter it in the Ravelry database. But this one is called Masco. It is 67% viscose, 20% mohair, and 13% nylon. It is incredibly soft. These are 25-gram balls. They are 125 meters. I don't remember how much that is in yards. I never remember if a meter is bigger than a yard or vice versa. They're close. It's definitely not 125 meters equals 125 yards, but they're sort of close. Anyway, I got 4 of this. It's the colorway when I found it online. The shop I found it in called it denim. I don't see any evidence that it's actually named denim. It's just called Color 9. But it was a good description. So it's kind of a silvery blue. And I got 4 balls. I also got 4 balls in lavender for Tiff. So I will show pictures here. So, I had trouble taking the picture of the lavender, but I futzed with the settings on and adjusted the picture, and it came out almost dead on. Tiff can attest to that, 'cause she actually has all her stuff now. Dad went there last week. He took chocolate and yarn and her sheep incognito calendar, so she got to see. She already has it all. The other yarn, this is the yarn I actually had to add to the Ravelry database. This is also Shulana, and it's called Colorelli. This one is pinks, burgundy, and then it goes to browns. So there's a little bit of orange and yellow in here. It does not, it's color 4, but I couldn't find it anywhere, so I just labeled this in Ravelry as pink, maroon, and brown. The other one I labeled as rainbow. This is color 2. You can kind of see all the different colors in there, I hope. Otherwise, I'm going to show pictures here. Now, I couldn't decide, and I think this is a light fingering, judging by the thickness and everything. So, I couldn't decide which color I liked. So, in the future, after the next episode, when I draw for the Rhinebeck yarn, then we will have a new contest for this yarn. And then the winner will get to pick whether they want the rainbow version or the pink and brown maroon version. So, these were all bought at Beatrix Peter, Mode and Wool. They have clothing already done, and they have yarn there. So, and that's the same yarn shop that we went to last year. While I was walking there, I was able to take some pictures of some of the buildings. So, I'm going to put that here, as long as we're talking. So, after I went to the yarn shop, I was just pretty much wandering the streets. The way Aro is set up is there's kind of a town that's just kind of circles. And you can get a little turned around, but now that I've wandered it a few times last trip and this trip, I may not know always exactly where I am, but I recognize enough to get out of it. So one of the things I did is I saw a store that had it had toys. So I went in there real quick just to see if there was something cool that I could get my son. There wasn't. So everything was either it was too little or something that I could get in the States that wasn't anything special. But it turned out that the other side of the store, and it was funny, both ends of the store opened on different streets, so I ended up going through the store. But the other end of the store was a bookstore. And I got myself a book in English just so I would have a book on the plane in case I got tired of knitting. That didn't happen. I actually didn't even open the book until earlier today. But it's called Forgotten. It's a it's a teen novel, but it's about a girl who only remembers all her memories are her future. She can't actually remember she can't actually remember her past. As soon as she lives a day, she forgets it. And it just sounded interesting. It's a fast read because it's young adult. It's not hard. But while I was in there, I also got postcards of Aro for my friend Fran. Oops. The last time I went to Switzerland, I couldn't find any in Aro, and I honestly forgot to really look. So I ended up getting her pick ones from Zurich at the airport. But this time, because I was at the bookstore, I made a point of looking. And so I found ones of the actual town I was staying in. Oh, that wasn't very smart. I was using them for a bookmark, and then I just pulled them right out. I wanted to get something different for best friend, so I got him this, Darth Vader Un Son. Now, you can get this book in English. I just thought it was fun because he likes Darth Vader. It's in German, and we're hoping at some point to just kind of sit down together and use the translator and translate stuff. I know that the back I translated earlier for myself, and it basically says, Luke, pick up your toys. Luke, I am your father, which is just funny. And do you want house arrest? Which I'm assuming is do you want to be grounded? There's one picture though that this one my best friend gets a kick out of, where he's trying to play baseball with the lightsaber, slices the baseball in half. So I have it here. Best friends down in Florida for an Aikido thing. So and then after that, I found Starbucks. And you want to know the wonderful thing about Starbucks is I was telling you about those little tiny coffees. Well, Starbucks there is the same as Starbucks here. You can order a caramel macchiato, venti, and it's the same thing. It's made the same way. You don't have to find new words for it. You don't have to figure out German. It was just nice for that little bit to be able to order something. That Starbucks actually had Switzerland mugs. They had travel-sized mugs that were really small. They were only 8 ounces, and that's just not enough coffee. Or they had big mugs, and they were mostly Switzerland, and then they had Starbucks, just in tiny letters. So they weren't overly Starbucks. And I picked it up and put it down 4 times while I was standing in line. I ended up not buying it because I decided the travel mug was a small size that I would never use, and the other mug would probably be hard to pack in my suitcase and not get damaged, and I don't actually use regular mugs that much. I have my Harry Potter one from when we went to Orlando, and I have my sheep one from YarnCon. And those are the 2 I primarily use. So, if I'm going to use a regular mug at home. So, and the cupboard doesn't need any more mugs because there's other coffee mugs up there. I just don't use them because they're not big. So, though, I have this coffee mug I got recently. It's a travel mug, and this one is a big 20 ounce. So, that makes me happy. I found that at Farm and Fleet, though. So, I ended up, after I was done wandering, I went back to the hotel, and I just kind of chilled for the night because it had been a very long week. So, I had spent some time out. I hung out in the hotel. Um, and I worked on my Everlasting Love shawl because I was determined to get past that lotus flower. So that night I got past the lotus flower. That was my big accomplishment, and I was so excited. And then I decided I needed to eat something. So I was trying to figure out what to do for dinner since I was now by myself. And in the train station, there is a Chinese restaurant. When I hadn't, it was Chinese restaurant and takeaway, which is basically takeout. What I hadn't comprehended was that the menu would be Chinese food written in German, and the guy there didn't really speak English. So I looked at the menu, and I looked at the menu and decided I couldn't tell. I understood what the meats were. I can recognize shrimp, pork, beef, chicken. I can recognize what those look like. In case you're wondering, chicken is like poulet, which is very similar to, a lot of other ones, poultry. Shrimp is creveton, something like that. But, crevations, pork is swine. And I don't remember what exactly beef is, except for that if it's not one of the other ones, it's the beef. Although, every now and then you have to be careful with what they call beef. Anyway, and they have a lot of veal there. Or not veal. Well, they have veal. Also venison. Even at the cafeteria, one of the main foods, almost every day there was a choice that was venison based. Anyway, so I ended up just pointing to something and ordering shrimp. I'm excited. So I'm sitting there going, I just ordered something with shrimp and a Diet Coke. I have no idea what I ordered. It turned out to be a black bean sauce, and it had fresh veggies, the black bean sauce, the shrimp and rice, and it was really, really tasty. Now, something to be aware of is in Switzerland, even though the Swiss franc to the dollar are pretty close, I mean, 1 Swiss franc is about equal to $1, the value is different. So my dinner and my Diet Coke, or regular Coke, I don't even know what I ordered, my food and my soda, and my food was definitely 1 servings. It was not big. If I go to the Chinese restaurant here and get takeout, I can get 2 meals out of it. This was definitely 1 serving. The food and the drink were close to 40 Swiss francs. So it was almost a $40 meal, and it certainly wasn't what I would expect a $40 meal to be in the U.S. It's just one of those things to be prepared for more than anything. So, but it was really good, and it was right next to my hotel. In fact, this is probably a good time to break and show you the little video I made of the hotel. I'm going to tell you a little secret. I redid the audio on this video. I watched it earlier and realized that I was kind of breathing right into the mic, and it was really distorted sounding, but the actual film was fine, so I just re-recorded the audio. This is my room when I was staying in Aarau, Switzerland. When you first come in, there's the bathroom, and then over to the left are the closets. There wasn't much in there except for dirty laundry.
So the bathroom is not huge, but it's functional. The beds are actually two twin beds put together, but they worked for me. There's a little side table with a reading lamp, my knitting, suitcase. There's a side table on both sides. I had a little table and chair. Not all the rooms had that little sitting area, but I liked it. There is the window. I opened it periodically because it got hot in there. There's no screen, but it didn't really matter at this time of year. TV, desk. In the desk there was a mini bar. I did steal a water out of there at one point. Not steal, I paid for the water. So, right outside the window is the train station. So, I mean, this hotel is right next to the train station. And they were doing construction next door because they're building a bus depot. Right below, there's actually the Chinese restaurant I went to. So, I open the window, look outside. There's a big clock on the train station. And that is my whole room.
So, that was my room. Now, one thing, I was going to take a picture and I forgot. The outlets in Switzerland are different. And if you have a converter like this, they have round prongs. Or you have one of these fancy ones and it says that that this is for Europe. It only sort of works in Switzerland. Now, I stole some pictures from Google that I'm going to post in here to show you why. Alright, so what you saw there is the outlets, and as you can see, they're actually not flush with the wall. They go in. And it was like that at the hotel, it's like that in the office. So if you have an adapter like this, sure, this says it will fit into the two prongs, but the round doesn't fit into the outlet indentation. It's like playing with those toys when little kids had, where you try and put the star into the square and the pegs don't fit in the holes. So this, useless for the most part. I also had one of these. This is supposed to be, universal to anywhere. It's pretty cool. I mean, it has where you can, that's for in the US. It's a universal to anything. So you can plug in US, Europe, I forgot where this one is. Anyway, and then on the front you can plug in anything. It sounds really cool, but it doesn't fit into those divots. Now, in the hotel, I had one that was shaped in the triangle, so it had 3 outlets, and they were more flush, so I could use this one, but by the time I plugged this in, it blocked the other ones, so therefore I could only use 1 out of the 3 outlets. So I unplugged the light behind the one chair because I didn't really need it anyway, so that I could use this to keep my iPhone and iPad charged. I just ordered this one. This one says it is designed for Switzerland, and it's grounded. I actually got 2 different kinds. I got this kind that's grounded, and I got a different one that's not grounded. I'm hoping with this shape that it will fit in the outlets. Now, I don't know if I'm going back to Switzerland again, but I've been a couple times now. We are going live there. It seems likely that I may go someday. So, I got this off of Amazon. It wasn't super expensive. And I tried to order it through Knitting on the Fly's blog so that she gets some credit for it. I don't think I did it right though, because I saw later that she said you have to directly order it. It can't be something already in your cart. So I don't think she got it. But anyway. So that's one of the things I've learned in Switzerland. And I knew it last time and I forgot all about it. So, oh well. So this time I'm prepared. I have that style and another style. And I have some extras, so hopefully I can give to other people too if they need them. And on the front, so that's the Switzerland. On the front, it takes a whole bunch of different kinds of styles. So, including the kind for my laptop. So, Saturday. Now, here's something about me. I talk to you guys all the time. At work, I have to talk to people all the time. I have to do presentations. I've gotten better at these things over the years, but it is not my nature. My nature is to hide. Tiff often says that she is very brave about trying all sorts of new things, because when we were kids, I would send my sister, who was 6 years younger, into stores and stuff because I was scared to death. So I was scared, and she would just do whatever because I was her big sister. And so she got to learn how to be brave, and I used to kind of hide behind her. So, and yes, I mean, we were being 6 years apart when we were kids. That was a big difference. So, and I get nervous about some things. I don't do well if I'm going to a party. I wouldn't have gone to the Susan G. Komen party if it wasn't for the fact that best friend went with me. It wouldn't have happened. The last place I worked, I used to sign up to help with the Christmas party so that I would have some sort of obligation to be there, because otherwise I wouldn't go. And even then, I would find reasons not to go. I would make sure that all the things I needed to do were done ahead of time, and I didn't have to go. So, and I wouldn't. I have been trying really hard to come out of that shell. I have to force myself sometimes. There's sometimes I have to force myself to go to knit night because I need to remember that I need to get out. I need to try some new things. I can't just hide. Some days it's easier than others. So, Saturday, I had been planning to just hang around Aro, and originally when I was planning this trip, it was supposed to be 60 degrees and sunny, and I figured that's perfect fall weather. You know, wander around, look at the shops. Supposedly they usually have shops down the center that are there on Saturdays that aren't there during the week. I figured I'd wander around. Well, a bunch of people said, don't stick around Aro. Go to Lucerne or Zurich. And they said if I wanted to go shopping, go to Zurich, and if I just wanted to see some really pretty things, go to Lucerne. Well, since Friday I had wandered around Aro, I kind of felt like I had done that. I was like, okay, I really should be brave and go out. And frankly, if it wasn't for you guys, I'm not sure I would have. Because really the guiding force that finally got me to leave the hotel on Saturday was telling myself that I couldn't come back and record and tell you guys I sat in the hotel room the whole day because I was scared. I had to get out and be able to tell you a story. And I thank you for that. It's good. It was good to have something to drive me to get out. So I decided to go to Lucerne because that was supposed to be pretty. And I looked ahead of time and I found that there was a yarn shop in Lucerne, not too far from the train station. And that was the only thing I had kind of focused on. They had told me that, if you walked, you could take something across the lake. I didn't really look into that because I wasn't sure how long I wanted to be there. But I got a round trip to Lucerne. And it started to rain that day. So it was kind of ick, which was the other reason why it was really hard to get them to push to go out. I was like, okay, well, I'll go to Lucerne. So I took 2 trains because I also went Aro to Olton and then Olton to Lucerne. This train station in Olton had a really pretty fountain, and I had like 40 minutes to kill there in between my 2 trains. So I was wandering around a little bit. So I did take a couple pictures at the Olton station. So I took the next train to Lucerne, and the train station in Lucerne is huge. It reminded me of Ogilvy Station in Chicago, and it was just big. And I realized all of a sudden that even though I had a map of where the yarn shop was, I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what side of the train station I was coming out of. The other train stations I had been at, not counting the Zurich airport because that's an airport, but the other train stations I had seen had been small and very easy to tell where you are. I had no idea what side I was coming out of. And I didn't have 3G there. I didn't pay for data in international data, so if I didn't have Wi-Fi, I didn't have anything. And I walked out, and I'm kind of in a panic going, okay, what in the world do I do now? And I look across the street and I see this beautiful building, and I'll show you pictures. So, beautiful building, Starbucks and McDonald's. Now, there's a part of me that's going, oh wow, here's this beautiful, gorgeous old building, and now it has a Starbucks and a McDonald's in it, which just seems kind of sad. But all of a sudden I'm like, oh my god, I wonder if Starbucks here has free Wi-Fi like in the States. And so I went across, I figured if nothing else, I can get a hot cup of coffee because I was cold, and now in Lucerne it was pouring rain. So I go into Starbucks. Sure enough, they do have free Wi-Fi for like the first hour, and I didn't need much more than, I didn't need that even that long. So I get a cup of coffee, and I use the Wi-Fi to actually like look up the yarn shop and a map and figure out where in the world I am, because then I could use my my iPhone maps. And I realized that the new iPhone iOS 6 maps aren't supposed to be as good, but frankly it saved me. So I mapped out from where I was to the yarn shop, and it turned out it was less than a mile away. It wasn't far at all. The only issue being the streets are not labeled. Like we're used to seeing on every street corner the signposts, and they don't have them. On some streets, the street name might be on the side of one of the buildings, but it depends on which direction you're facing, and it's not always there. So I just kind of had to judge by how many blocks I was going on some of it. But what I did is, while I was at Starbucks, I took screenshots with my, because I had my phone, and you could take screenshots by pushing the home button and the power button at the same time. So I looked at the map, got it where I could see stuff, took a screenshot, flipped it to the next, turn, took another screenshot. So that while I was walking, I at least had the screenshots to look at, even though I no longer had GPS once I left Starbucks. And it turned out I walked, and I didn't see the yarn shop. And it turned out that on the website, it had the name of the shop in big letters. Well, the big letters aren't there now. I don't know if they changed names or what. But I walked too far, and I got to a point where I'm like, that doesn't look right. And so I was soaked because it was just pouring. And my feet were wet because the only shoes I had, remember, were my heeled boots or my tennis shoes. I didn't wear my heeled boots for walking around. I brought my tennis shoes, and some of the streets are old, and there's just sometimes you can't help but walk in the puddles. So my feet were wet. I was wet. I was just soaked. So I had walked for a while, realized I was lost, found a place with kind of an overhang, and looked at my screenshots again and really tried to think about where it looked like I was, and realized that I must have passed it. So I went back, and I almost missed it again, except for I happened to glance and realize that there was yarn. I was like, and I walked in there, and I'm dripping. And the shop owner didn't speak very much English, but she spoke enough to understand that I was from the States, and that, you know, I was looking for yarn because I like to look at yarn shops when I travel. And she's like, oh yes, me too. She's like, that's how you find new things. So she was very nice, and she told me to just stay and drip dry. And so I ended up buying yarn from her, more than I had intended. So I got a couple of, this is more Shulana. This is a chunky weight. It's a Kambata print, color 254. It is charcoal gray with bits of red, purple, and pink. Now I've got this partially because I don't have bulky weight in my stash for the most part. And because I've gotten yarn and fiber at Rhinebeck and Switzerland, and I have a bunch of yarn. My plan is to not get yarn again until my plan is to get yarn only at festivals, except for some Highland Handmaids, which I'm waiting for her to release the Dragonfly colorway on fiber again. And yes, I could custom order it, but I just feel like, you know, I win if I wait for an update and keep stocking. So I wanted to get some bulky in my stash. And these were only, I will say, you know, I was talking about the price and the cost of living there. Yarn tends to be about the same price there as here. And I don't know if that's partially because with the internet, you got to be competitive, but there was not a noticeable difference. I didn't feel anything was overpriced. So these were 7 Swiss francs each. I partially got this colorway because it reminded me of the way my hair was looking, where it was, you know, with the brown, and then the white highlights had come back through, and there was some pink going through, and it just made me reminiscent, and I thought, why not have something that kind of reminds me of that time period? And I realized my hair is not charcoal gray, but and as you can see, I did my hair yesterday. I just got it done. We just did an all-over color. I'm sorry, I'm sidetracking. I just did an all-over color because the highlights had gotten really, really white, and there's the pink in there. And so we did an all-over color, and eventually this color will tone down, and those highlights and everything will actually start coming through. There's actually already some spots where you can see the pink kind of coming through and making it kind of a magenta color. I thought that was kind of funny when I looked, but the highlights will come back through. And then maybe in the future I'll do more highlights, but right now I wasn't going to highlight it again. We're just in a couple of weeks it should start getting some dimension to it. So the other yarn I got is this. This is from Zitron, which is made in Germany, but you can get it here. It is Phyllis silk. It is 70% merino, 30% silk, I think. Let me look at the one that doesn't have a thing on it. Yeah. It is in a forest green color. Now, I am figuring that this will be a good yarn. I showed you that one with the like flowers and dragonflies. I think this will be a good yarn for that one. Best friend was hoping I would do it in sort of a dark purpley blue, but I saw this and went, ooh, that will work for that. Anyway, I'm going to show you pictures of both of those close up because I don't know how the lighting is going, and you know I always show you guys pictures. Alright. I was just looking at the clock and I think this is already an hour. And I still have stuff to tell you. I'm sorry. So, after I was at the yarn shop, I decided to start walking again. And as I was walking, I again was getting drenched. Plus, it had started to snow, so it was about 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was at that point where it's pouring rain, and there's little bits of snow, and it was cold. So I went to this little cafe, and they felt kind of sorry for me too. But they were like, "Yes, just go sit." So I got a sandwich and a cup of coffee there, and these little a bag of pastries. They look like elephant ears, but they were really, really thin, thinner than I've ever had here. Those I took back to the hotel. So I sat there with my sandwich and my coffee. And my knitting. That's about it. I knit on the train, and I knit in that cafe. And one of the things I had passed was a pharmacy. And a friend of mine, Anna, who I went to Rhinebeck with, when we were going to Rhinebeck, she had mentioned that they like collecting pictures of pharmacies from around the world. So I took a picture of the pharmacy in Lucerne, and that was at the point when I realized that apothecary was pharmacy, like apothecary, and realized that every day I had passed one to and from my way to work. I went, oh, I should have taken a picture of that one. So I took a picture of the one in Lucerne for her. And I had my lunch, and I decided that it was just time to go back to the hotel. I'm like, I was cold. My underwear, everything was soaked. I had on, at the beginning of this episode, you saw a picture of me with the cowl. It was actually this cowl. This is a long one. Now, I'm going to show you something. The, you see this tag? It says one size fits all. It means I didn't make this. It also says 100% acrylic. I bought a sweater at Kohl's, and this came with. But it was long enough that I could double it over, and then when it got really cold, I could do one of these. The picture at the beginning was actually from me trying to take a picture of myself and seeing if I looked stupid with it over my head or if it looked okay. And I actually decided it came out as a pretty good picture, so hence why you guys got to see it. Even with this, that's cold. So I'm like, okay, I'm feeling done. I want to go back. I've got, an hour and a half of two trains to take, and I really, by this time, by the time I was done with the whole thing, I was actually out for like 6 or 7 hours, so I don't feel too bad. So I took the train back. The one thing on the train is a lot of people are friendly. I mean, you sit wherever, and you're going to sit next to people that you don't know. One of the other things I learned, if you're ever in Switzerland, WC means bathroom. It actually means like water closet. But if you're trying to find the bathroom and you see a room with WC, or you're on the train and you see WC and it's either lit up in red or green, or it has a light next to it that's red or green, that's telling you whether the bathroom is currently occupied. So WC is where the bathroom is. It's a good thing to know when you're wandering around and you're soaking wet and suddenly you realize that you have to go. Anyway. the so I took the trains back. I had my pastries with me. I had my yarn. I felt like I had accomplished stuff. And then I decided that I just couldn't go. Now that I realized that I had been passing the pharmacy every single day on the way to work, I really wanted to get a picture of it for Anna. Plus, I, at that point, was out of ibuprofen and my knee was still bothering me. So I decided I will walk towards work and go to the pharmacy, get a picture for her, and see if I could get ibuprofen. So I did. So here's the other pharmacy. And the very nice pharmacist there helped me decipher ibuprofen. We had to do through, I wasn't even going to try and explain to her that my knee hurt. I just told her I needed medicine for a headache and that I was looking for ibuprofen. And she said, and she went, all of a sudden she dawned on her, she went, oh, ibuprofen, or something like that. And she went to the shelf and she got it for me. Well, luckily the chemical name, is the same everywhere. So I looked at it and went, yes, that's it. One thing to be aware of if you're in another country, make sure you look at the dosage. Because here in the States, one ibuprofen is 200 milligrams. The ones I got there were 400 milligrams each. So, just travel tip. So, went there, got my ibuprofen. Had to go through the train station again to get back to the hotel, so I just grabbed myself a sandwich and something to drink for later, and I went back to the hotel. And by that point, it was like 6 or 7 hours of wandering, and I felt done. So, but here's what I was watching on TV at the hotel. See if you can guess. Real tough one, huh? So, during this whole time, I was knitting on a project. Now, a while back, I spun up yarn from Gnome Acres. So, here's a couple of reminder pictures. So that one was the one that was bright blue with streaks of like red and yellow going through it. And then when I spun it, I didn't do a very good job of separating those colors, and so it felt kind of muddy to me. And I wasn't really sure, but then I had decided that I was going to do a pattern called the Dungarees Cowl, and it's linked down the show notes. So I knit this primarily during the trip. I started it on Saturday. I actually cast it on before I left the hotel and knit like the first 2 rounds just to get it started so I could carry it with me. It was some seed stitch, increase, because this part's supposed to ruffle, although I've blocked it and I've worn it and it's not ruffly now. But you increase, you do some stockinette, you decrease again. You do these lateral braids, which I think are just really cool. They're really easy to do, and they look really interesting. Anyway, and then you do the center stitch with a little bit of stockinette on the 2 edges, and then you reverse it at the top. You do the braids again, the increase, the stockinette, the decrease, and the seed stitch. I really like it. It matches my brown leather coat. It matches most of my clothing because whatever I'm wearing, it kind of picks up the colors. So, the only bad part is I originally had been figuring that I would knit, if I was home with a scale, I would knit the beginning part and then knit the middle repeat until I had gotten halfway through my skein, and then from that point do, start going the other direction, do the other half. so that I could get the most yardage out. Well, the original pattern called for 8 repeats. I did 10, I believe. 9 or 10. I don't remember now. And I got nervous. And when I was finishing, when I was at that point, I was actually on the plane. There was nothing I could do. So I decided to err on the side of being cautious because I didn't want to run out. Well, it turned out I have a lot left over. This is that little mini skein that was left anyway from the second bobbin. And this is what I have left from the first one. I could have made this bigger. I haven't weighed it to see how much that is. And I couldn't find my nitty knotty when I was first when I first rewound it to find out the yardage. I have found it now. When we were doing the flooring, I had put all the spinning stuff into my son's room because I didn't want the spinning wheel to get full of sawdust. And for whatever reason, I took part of it downstairs and I missed the nitty knotty and some other stuff. So I didn't use it all. But that being said, I like the length it is now. I don't think I would have wanted it much bigger. So, and I'm really happy with the way, let me show you some finished pictures of the cowl. I'm really happy with the way some of the color came back. It's like if I knit a section where a lot of the blues were, suddenly you can see the blues. You can see a lot more of the colors in this than you could in my finished yarn. I have grown to love it, and this is the first thing I've knit out of my own hand spun. I mean, I've been spinning, but I haven't knit any of it. So this is the first thing that I can say. I spun the yarn and then I knit it. And my dad's laughing at me and saying, that we need more lives than just knitting and spinning. But that's too bad. Actually, my answer was, I just went to New York and Switzerland. What do you want out of me? And I did flooring. So this was my big project that I didn't tell you about when I did the Rhinebeck episode because I started it and got it almost all the way finished during my Switzerland trip. I had to do the last little bit of stockinette and seed stitch before I could bind off. I had to do that here, but it was almost totally done on the Switzerland trip. So I'm going to look real quick at my notes to see if there's anything else that I had written down to tell you guys. The only thing else I wrote down is that from the commercials on TV, what we call Axe deodorant is called Lynx there, because I just found it interesting. But that didn't fit in anywhere in any of these stories. So, that was my trip. My flight back was uneventful. I drove home from O'Hare, and even though it was only like 7 o'clock, all of a sudden I did realize on the way home that I had been up like 21 hours, and I was really tired, but best friend was waiting for me when I got home. We went out to go get some dinner, and then I promptly crashed. And then all week I've been tired. The one night I fell asleep about 8 o'clock. So I actually got up early this morning. I'm trying to get myself back on normal. And having the time changed in Europe while I was there, and then the time changed here this weekend. So I'm all sorts of screwed up. Anyway, all right. I will see you guys next week. Like I said, I'm not recording again tomorrow, so I will record again on the 12th. We will draw for the Han Farm, so remember to go post about your festival experiences or not experiences in the Ravelry thread. And then next time I will discuss the contest for the Shulana Colorelli yarn. And I will talk to you guys all next time. Bye now.